So before we call the legislative meeting to order, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of two community members who recently passed away in our district. One was Mr. David Rackow, who devoted 16 years of his life to school board service. And so, and he also has a son who teaches in the district. The other community member was Miss King, who has a son in the district, who I'm sure we heard about in the news, the tragic events of her passing. We want to take a moment of silence for both of them. Okay, thank you. We will start the legislative meeting with Mr. Burdell Williams doing the Pledge of Allegiance, leading the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Harding will provide the roll call.
Mr. Cohen,
Present.
Mr. Epps,
Present.
Mr. Fishbein,
Here.
Ms. Haywood, Ms. Henry,
Present.
Ms. Lohman,
Here.
Ms. Mulhern,
Here.
and Mr. Schultz.
Present.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Ms. Harding.
I think you missed one. I know I did lead with the Pledge of Allegiance, so I had to be here. Mr. Burton Williams present. That's all right.
I'm so sorry. Mr. Burdell Williams, for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Burdell Williams. We will note that he is present. And so next we have our spotlight on Cheltenham Elementary School, Principal Perez.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Scriven, fellow administrators, and Cheltenham community. I'd like to share some exciting things that have been occurring at Cheltenham Elementary this school year. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the amazing artwork that's on display here in the boardroom. I know that those online can't see it, but I do want to acknowledge our students' amazing work with support from our fabulous art teacher, Ms. Pellish. But without further ado, I have a short video, and I'd like to Thank you. As you can see from the slideshow, CES has been a very busy place this school year. We are a welcoming school community and enjoy all the opportunities we have to share our experiences with our stakeholders. This school year, we have really encouraged classrooms to open up more opportunities for parents to engage in student learning opportunities, especially in our kindergarten and first grade years, as you saw from the video. Some of our academic focus areas have been utilizing consistent small group instruction in both ELA and math, developing common assessments at certain grade levels, emphasis on numeracy development at the early kindergarten and first grade years, ensuring that early literacy skills that are developed and targeted, as well as addressed through intervention. Our emphasis in our third and fourth grade has been to focus on our math, both numbers and operations, utilizing small group instruction, common assessments, and targeted intervention with use and support through our tutoring programs. and building out our MTSS team to be more efficient, effective, and accountable as it relates to our documentation, with some professional development to support our process. As it relates to climate and culture, we are working this year to build on our PBIS Tier 1 designation by expanding our PBIS team, developing exciting reinforcers for positive behaviors, and working to build consistency on our restorative practices methods, as well as providing professional development for our staff. Finally, we have continued to build on our project-based learning opportunities for our students through our iLab to ensure that all students have access to several projects throughout the year. In addition, extending further opportunities for students such as Girls Who Code, Robotics Club, Tech Team, additional opportunities for students during WIN to allow them to access STEAM activities. So that is a few things that are going on at Cheltenham, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to share a little bit about our school community. If you have any questions,
It was beautiful.
oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. We next have the student representatives report. Do we? Okay. It looks like our student representative is not available right now, but if they should either come in person or show up in the Zoom call, we will go back to that report. Dr. Scriven has a superintendent's report.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board and to our community. As always, I have the charge of bringing forth a superintendent's report. And first and foremost, want to start with giving a little additional context about what we're doing with the branding initiative. As you're well aware, the strategic plan was adopted in March, and subsequently we are implementing the initiatives under each of our respective 7 goals. Under communication, one of the first initiatives is around branding. So we're taking the opportunity to revisit what we as a community believe is our brand. A lot of individuals already have a perception and beliefs around what they feel the Cheltenham brand is, but we are taking a deeper dive, and subsequently a survey has gone out. There's been a lot of feedback from that survey where very specific questions are being asked around how do individuals view us as a district? The piece which is a little unique is that not only do you have an opportunity to respond, but then it's actually rated by other individuals who are also active in taking that survey. And there's been approximately 11,000 different ratings. And that was a little different for people to be able to see what others were saying. But this is an opportunity for us to have some real dialogue and to assess what the truth of others are and how that is perceived or viewed by various members within the community. And this is giving us all a pretty strong baseline of data in which we could take a deeper dive and really try to unpack, well, what are the various themes? What are the beliefs? What are the perceptions? What are the values that are being articulated, I guess is the best word, or identified as it relates to the community. So I'm excited about this initiative. We will then have a task force, which is being established, a multi-stakeholder task force, which will then take all of this rich information and really try to formulate it and come up with some recommendations around what the Cheltenham brand is. And if you go to the next slide, Debbie, I believe those two meeting dates are May 11th and June 15th. So if you have not had the opportunity to take the survey, Mr. Kaufman, when does that close? It closes this Friday. I know that members of the board have already been engaged. If there's any of you that have not, please take advantage of the opportunity prior to Friday. If there's any community members or central office folks that have not engaged in the survey, please do so. The more information we have, the better we are in terms of really trying to evaluate and position our path forward from a branding perspective. So very excited about that information. So you can go to the next slide. I'm glad Mr. Perez is still here because at CES, they have what's called a coding and a robotics night. And they've been doing this, I think they took off 2 years while we were in the pandemic. This is probably the 5th year in person. And they have a pretty powerful teacher over there who's one of our challenge teachers, Mr. Gerald Ox, and I want to give him a shout out because he organizes all of this. But I want to go to the photos and the videos if we could. Not that one. Giving all the good stuff away early. I'm not going to even show you that last one. But and you can click through. I just want to kind of speak to what you're seeing. We were fortunate enough as a community to kind of see some of the things that are happening at STEM here. This is really interesting here. What this is Aslan is a company that deals with security. So their robotics, their software, their AI. Those are the watchdogs that they use and monitor virtually through their location in Norristown. So these robots are actually the security mechanisms for businesses throughout the country, and they're monitored by their company remotely. The challenge teacher at Cheltenham Elementary reached out, and one of the co-founders of the company came out and brought the robots to present to the students. They're right across the street from Flux Space. And you could keep, this is just another example. You could keep going through the slide. This gentleman, Brett, is actually one of the co-founders and actually came out to spend time with our students and explain and let them operate the robots, which was pretty cool. This is really how they start the evening, where they have their parents and the children actually doing coding with one another. And really it's the kids who are at this point showing their parents how to code. That is our challenge teacher at Cheltenham, Gerald, who's outstanding. This gentleman right here in the blue shirt is Ryan, who is actually from Flux Space. So the $650,000 grant that we received, he's the one that is facilitating that here for us. And actually, when we talk about the maker spaces in 101 at the end of our hallway, right next to 102, that is going to be one of the maker spaces that teachers are going to be able to push into right here within the administrative building. And Ryan's facilitating this. This is a hummingbird on steroids. So basically, there's a component that is able to be coded, which allows that structure to move and function as a robot. And these were some of the things that they were explaining to the students. Next slide, please. There's a whole continuum. Elementary, you had Cedar Brook, and you had the high school. And the real focus was, a lot of times if you ask our students about coding, they either want to be a YouTuber or they want to be a gamer, right? And these activities really give them exposure to what else you could potentially be as a result of having interest in this area. You can go to the next slide. You can keep going. Keep going. This is all elementary level. This is them coding, engage, keep going. Oh, go back one. I just want to show. So this is the mini version of the Hummingbird. I want to give the Cheltenham Foundation a shout out. This is one of the grants through the foundation with Dr. Hart. And a Hummingbird is a component. You can go back. Oh, she's quick on the trigger. The cardboard box, that the Hummingbird is actually coded to turn the cardboard box into a robot. And that's what the kids are working on, which is pretty cool. Next slide. You know who Sarah is. She's our high school computer teacher who's there giving back to the other grades. Next slide. We can keep going. Keep going. Omar's at Cedar Brook. We can keep going. I just wanted to show you. So this is the high school. They're part of First Robotics. I just wanted to show you one of the robots they had created. They were there demonstrating. So it's really just showing that continuum. You can see the evolution from some of the smaller bots to the large first bot. I think it's one more if you keep going. And there goes a smaller one that was actually done. So I really want to dig in to this and really take a deeper dive at how we can take this. Now, this is the elementary. This is robotics at their level right now. And it goes from this level to what you just saw. So I want to take a deeper dive and really get out of it.
Put it down to the end, and all the way around, bring them all the way back, and you can see in the camera the whole way. You ready?
Okay, thank you. You can go to the next slide. So Cheltenham Elementary, I just want to end on this, is the exemplar, right? We're talking about how do we get out of silos and take best practices to all of our schools. One of our teachers from Myers was there observing, who's a challenge teacher. But I really want to look at, and that's part of our work, is as we're scheduling out these opportunities, how is that reflected at every elementary? Because that's such a rich opportunity that they were afforded. So Mr. Perez, kudos to you and your team over there. That was an outstanding night. And we will do a better job of getting events like that out. I know that this is always the Wednesday of National Robotics Week. So I'll keep that on your calendar for next year. These individuals behind me here, I had an opportunity. I get to step in Mr. Burdell Williams's shoes just for a little bit because they're students at Eastern, sir. And I hope this was not in your report, but if it is, you can reiterate. I had the opportunity to meet them, and it was two of the three. Marin, she was not there, but I met Rakondo and Celia, who were both winners in Hershey for the Eastern Center representing Eastern, but there's Cheltenham students. Rakondo is going to Howard University, where he's going on a pre-med track. And Celia is going to Jefferson, where she's going on a nursing track. But this all ties together in terms of just what our students can do and why it's so important to look at that K through 12 continuum. This is just them on the back end graduating from high school, but there's a focus around STEM tonight. You can go to the next slide. Now this is deep. I had to do some homework on Alana Lewis, who won. I'm gonna just read it to you. Effect of microplastic exposure on health of begonias. Does anyone know what that means? Right, I didn't either. This is one of our high school students, so I'm gonna read it to you. So microplastics is extremely small pieces of plastic debris in the environment resulting from the disposal and breakdown of consumer products and industrial waste. And it's an impact that it has on the begonias is a plant that's generated in warm areas, warm climates. So she was showing the impact of what these particles have on the development of these plants because it has an impact that it impacts the soil, right? So I'm keeping it high level because I'm not a scientist. But kudos to her. And I want to get some information on what her future aspirations are. Really where I want to start to go with this as we're moving through the year is start to have students come out and present to the board, right? Where you're hearing it firsthand from them, what they're doing, their experiences, and just their knowledge. I just think that will be so powerful. So we're going to continue to upgrade. These next little folks are, and I shouldn't call them little folks, these young scholars are from Cedarbrook. Josh Owens took a first place, I believe. Cole Powers was a third. Shay was a honorable mention, and Noel Ryan won an ACE scholarship. But I had to do some homework again. So Josh Owens, this was pretty self-explanatory, was just looking at the different woods that could be used to make the best bow. That wasn't, I could follow that. Our third place was, they were looking at the correlation between most used letters and the success rate of completion. And this is dealing with Wordles. I've not gotten that deep in it, but this is a whole nother level and something that I'm gonna have to take a deeper look in. So Wordles are, players try to find a 5-letter word by guessing. After each guess, you learn which letters are in the right place and which other letters are part of the word, but not placed correctly. Then you get to guess again, but you only have 6 opportunities to do this. So this whole research was grounded in that. And I'm not going to go through each one, but I just thought that they were fascinating. This one on UV is pretty fascinating as well. I do have to read that one. I'm sorry. Wow. So was the next one with Noel. If any of you are dealing with parents, I have an 88-year-old right now, and she was doing research on why is there a decreased dreams as individuals age. And it was around their cognitive ability as they're getting older, right? I just thought that that was fascinating because we have a population which is a very large elderly population, and understanding the brain and those functions is extremely interesting to me. And this other one dealing with the UV just shows how it offsets. Let me go and read it because, again, I'm not a scientist. So UV energy is absorbed by the DNA and RNA contained in the cells, and this creates dimmers or a double bond between adjacent nucleosides, on and on. Bottom line, our kids are doing some heavy stuff. And I just really, and this is middle school, right? So again, as we're looking at the continuum and we're looking at who our future scientists, inventors, problem solvers are going to be, they're right here in our district. So I think that that's outstanding. All right, now let me try to get out of this. And we can go to the next slide. This was a fun slide. We had judges, if you know Judge Tolliver, he was there, and the Divine Nine are your different fraternity individuals from fraternities, and we had school-based folks. I was there. Mr. Charles Burdell Williams was there, and this was a tie ceremony at Elkins Park, and we're going to be losing Miss Sid this year. She's a counselor. Sid Smith is retiring, but she has. It's a legacy, which is sustainable. She's passed the baton, which is awesome. But there were over 20 young men, and we were impressed, not just with really their leadership as sixth graders who will be matriculating to Cedarbrook next year. And this was my second year, the opportunity I had to participate in this. And we were really able to invite parents and families out. It really took a greater appreciation with us being post-COVID versus when we were in the COVID mode last year. These little guys, these are some smart little kids right here. So MCIU does this Olympics competition at North Penn, and these were the winners. Blue ribbon is the highest that you can get. And I did the breakdown. There were a total of 34 teams. 19 and below is yellow, 20 to 29 is green, 30 to 39 is red, anything over 40 is blue, and Myers took blue. And they sit in a circle, that's what the other picture represents, and individuals from MCIU asked them different questions around the books. Each one had to read a minimum of 7 books. So you do 7 times, it's about 8 of them, plus 7 was the minimum. Any question, and they beat on the floor and gives them opportunity to talk and come up with the response to the questions. Well, their comprehension skills are pretty incredible because they got one of the highest honors out of the team. So just wanted to give a shout out to Myers for that. And then this last one, man, I think Mr. Burdell Williams follows me because he was there Saturday as well. Miss Mulhern was there. We had a great turnout. This was a kickoff for Little League. My second year doing it, I get to throw out the first pitch. They honor me with that. I had little Jordan, who was my catcher. I put a little too much heat on the ball, and it was inside and high. So Jordan missed the ball, but I got it over the plate, and Mr. Burdell Williams, he said I did a good job. So, I'm going to take his praise because he's an avid coach. And we're going to end it on a positive. So I just want to say there are great things going on in the district, and our students and our teachers are so powerful, and this team that supports them all. There's a lot that we have to be proud of. We know that there's a lot of work we have to do, but we are moving in the right direction each and every day. So thank you, and back to you, Madam Chair.
That was a great report. Mr. Diazio will provide the solicitor's report.
Yes, thank you. The board has not met in executive session since the last meeting, so no Sunshine Act announcements this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diazio. Next, we have public comments on agenda items only. If we have community members in the room, you can come to the podium, state your name and where you reside in the district. If you are watching via Zoom, you can raise your hand you'll be unmuted. Or if you're streaming, you can email CSD board meeting comments@cheltenham.org. No hands raised. Okay. Can I have a motion for the approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And motion carries. And I will provide the financial affairs committee report. The last financial affairs meeting was held on April 11th, 2023. The agenda topics included a review of the interim financial statements through March 2023. It was noted that increases in expenditures, I'll get that out right, was due to the payroll calendar. There was a projection of the financial results through the end of the fiscal school year, which is June 30, 2023. Also, to provide everyone with advance notice, the 2023 Finance Committee schedule was presented with the topics that will be covered at each meeting, including the budget schedule. So that is online in that presentation for anyone who was interested in that. Also, I want to highlight that in the financial statements, there was a surplus of $4.5 million. And so that specifically goes to the work that the district and the administration and the board has done to make sure our budget is where it needs to be. We also reviewed ESSER spending. Included in the consent agenda for approval tonight is an approval for the fire alarm, a new fire alarm, and also educational technology purchases. The next meeting is scheduled for May 2nd, 2023. And that concludes my report. The Educational Affairs Committee report will be provided by Ms. Mulhern.
Good evening. Thank you. The last Educational Affairs Committee meeting was on Tuesday, March 21st, and we were in this room, which is a change from what we normally do. The meeting was not hybrid. We were in person with the biggest crowd I've seen in this room in a long time, probably pre-COVID, and we discussed STEM, PBL, and challenge updates from Dr. Riley and Mr. Pimental and Dr. Smith. We were able to, because we were here in this room in person, we were able to see demonstrations and displays of student work in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, project-based learning, PBL, and our challenge program. All 7 schools and grades 3 through 12 were represented by, over a dozen teachers and dozens of students that came along. We had lots of families here as well. We began with a brief presentation from Dr. Riley and Mr. Pimental, updating the board and the community on the district's progress in our innovative instructional practices in those areas of STEM and PBL, and how the new strategic plan will tie into where we are going, especially accomplishing deeper learning. We spent the short time we had on the presentation, because we were excited to get to the room, was spent on that. And this really ties in a lot to Dr. Scriven's report that he just gave, talking about what was happening at Myers, what's happening, with different schools working together, all of the amazing opportunities and projects that students and teachers are coming up with. Cheltenham continues their partnership with High Tech High and is also working with the Center for Love and Justice, both organizations whose project-based learning visions align with ours. One thing I like to pull out is that Dr. Riley shared 3 guiding questions that help drive their work. 1, are we creating opportunities that result in transferable and authentic learning experiences? 2, what is a CSD graduate prepared to be or do? And 3, are we preparing students for the reality of life? And I think thinking about those questions, I think a lot about our strategic plan and how it truly does align. We discussed deeper learning. Students today need more than basic math and English if they want to succeed in the workplace of the future. And we are doing our best to try to get them there. Onto the exciting part of the evening, not that that was not exciting, Dr. Riley. We had about an hour to spend in the exhibits, talking to students and teachers and really, seeing hands-on, even getting sometimes to see a demonstration or to be part of a demonstration. I'm going to try to give a quick overview. This will not be everything we heard from, but I think it's important to acknowledge the staff and the students that were here. Ms. Bianchini from Myers Elementary, Ms. Brooks from Glenside Elementary, Ms. Lee and Ms. Darwin from Elkins Park School showed coding technology to control sound and movement. There were Lego robotics and Ozobots that were shared by Ms. Hobson from Wyncote, Mr. Osei from Myers, Mr. Morrison from Glenside. Robotics projects can be seen in classrooms at all 4 of our K-4 schools. From Cedarbrook, we had student work from Mr. Rose's STEM class, including a visual representation of math through string art. In a collaborative effort, Cedarbrook's Mr. Quenzer, Wyncote's Ms. DiBattista, and the high school's Ms. Putterman provided middle school students an opportunity to design an app. It was a learning math facts app that they had. High school students mentored the middle school students to create the app, and that app will be shared with 3rd graders. So I just think that's a really cool, really showing how we can all learn from each other. And the kids, the students from middle school from Cedarbrook, were so excited on all angles about this project. It was just great to see their excitement. From the high school, Ms. Sella and Mr. Quaz showed us examples of project-based learning with projects that demonstrated by students that they had completed for their Power project. That exhibition was in February. There was also a recording of an original script and play that was adapted from Macbeth that PBL 10 students put on back in January. And finally, high school students from Ms. Putterman's computer science program and Mr. Smith's challenge course showed us a variety of projects that they have been working on that really follow the tenets of design thinking. This event was a huge undertaking, so thanks to Dr. Smith and Dr. Riley and Mr. Pimentel and Mr. Murphy for coordinating the meeting. And I'm going to give an extra shout out to Mr. Murphy, who I know works with all of those schools, all of those teachers, to really give them the PD and the training that they need and the students, the assistance they need to be successful in all of these projects. Photos of the event and the full presentation are all available on the website. I wish there was a video to share, but as I said, we were in person and it was amazing. So thank you again. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, April 25th. It is a hybrid meeting and it will actually follow the policy meeting. The meetings will be right one after the other because we will be discussing the changes that are proposed to the homework policy. So next week, 7 p.m., April 25th. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Mulhern. Mr. Burdell Williams will provide the Eastern Center for Arts and Technology report.
All right, thank you. The Eastern Center for Arts and Technology met last week on Wednesday, April 12th. That was a virtual meeting. We started with the student of the month, Mr. Joseph Hardy, who is in the Protective Services program. He is a senior at Upper Moreland High School and also a standout student athlete. In addition to being a great leader, he's also led his class by achieving many industry standard certifications in life support, hazardous materials knowledge and management, as well as some national incident management certifications as well. Not a whole lot in terms of approvals for the Joint Operating Committee in the month, but one very important one was the approval of the new collective bargaining agreement for Eastern. That agreement will last from 2023 to 2028. There were some salary increases and also some higher contributions that were required for benefits, which are relatively common that are happening right now, given changes in the overall environment of healthcare, especially over the last number of years since their last contract was ratified 5 years ago. One note, just in terms of the process at Eastern, is that the salaries of the teachers and staff at Eastern are an average of that of all of the sending districts. So as our districts go, so do that of Eastern, and that's not just for salary, but also in many ways. They participate in the same benefits consortium. The name is missing me right now. That other other school districts contribute to in southeastern PA, and the name is going to miss me. CPAS, thank you very much, Mr. Swigert. That information again and other full details of the remainder of that meeting can be found on Eastern's website under school board in the board brief section, as well as a full summary of the meeting in and of itself. The next meeting of, before I move on, I do want to, Dr. Scriven, thank you for laying the red carpet for the acknowledgement of the success of the 3 CHS students who won at the Skills USA competition. I just want to provide a little bit of context in the big picture on that. Eastern brought 16 students to the regional Skills USA competition, walked away with 8 medal winners. So half of the students who were there walked away with a medal. And of that 8, 3 were CHS students. So again, additional context to some of the great work that our students are doing and contributing broadly, right? Not just here, but also receiving recognition regionally and going on to a national competition in Atlanta to look for some acknowledgement on the national acknowledgement and achievement on the national level. The next meeting for the Eastern Center Arts and Technology Joint Operating Committee will be on Wednesday, May 10th at 8 p.m. in person at Eastern's facility on Turwood Road in Upper Moreland. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdell Williams. Ms. Loban will provide the MCIU report.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. The Montgomery County Intermediate Unit Board met on Wednesday, March 29th at 6:45 p.m. in person at the MCIU's main office in Norristown and also over Zoom. The MCIU board meeting always starts with an IU program highlight, which is usually, kind of an in-depth look at one of the areas of the programmatic areas that the IU offers. At the March meeting, it was the transition services program. Brittany Gambone, who's the program administrator for the transition services program, which prepares students for life after high school, students with disabilities for life after high school, provided the board and the audience with an overview and highlights from the transition program. And the program really focuses on children who are ages 14 years and older to provide services and opportunities to help them prepare for their future. The programs are community-based and supported by professional educators through a collaboration with businesses, schools, families, and local agencies. And school districts must refer students to the MCIU transition program for them to participate in it. And then she gave some examples of kind of what goes on in the transition program, and some of which we actually provide in-house here at the district, which is interesting. So I don't think our district actually sends that many kids there because we already do a lot of this work in-house at CHS. So the IU offers an independent living program, which assists students between the ages of 18 and 21 with developing independent living skills in an apartment setting. We already have that type of setting at CHS. The IU's transition program also offers a workplace skills training, community-based internships, paid employment for some of its students, career exploration opportunity program at North Montco Tech and Western Montgomery Career and Technology Center. So, and then several different types of vocational assessments as well. So it's a wide range of program services that the transition program offers. There's currently 120 students that are served in the program up to age 21. Ms. Gambone is very active on Twitter. So if you're interested in following the MCIU Transition Services Program on Twitter, it's there, and she posts many times a day. So she really does a great job marketing the program, promoting it, and it's doing some really interesting things. The other thing I just wanted to mention, in addition to the vocational assessments, is before COVID, the MCIU was actually applying to be an Office of Vocational Rehab assessment site, which is important because it allows the MCIU then to make recommendations for students who age out of school age programs to get vocational rehabilitation services. So they're like in the process of trying to restart that and trying to become that again. So they are very active there at the transition program. Then Dr. Speaker, who's the executive director of the MCIU, announced that the IU recently engaged in a staff engagement survey, which had an 84% response rate, and they're going to be analyzing the survey to identify common themes to develop action plans, in particular focused on retention, which I'll get to in a second. Jack Hurd, who's the director of the Office of Human Resources at the IU, has been working with a consultant for a complete analysis of the current MCIU salary structure. Speaking of salaries, this review is completed every few years, and it is anticipated that any changes will be shared with staff for implementation effective July 1st, 2023. As part of the discussion of that, someone from the Norristown School District mentioned that they're actually going to be approving their budget by the end of May, so that their teachers know that they will have jobs next year. So I don't know exactly what the sort of financial situation is in some of the other districts in the IU, but that kind of came up as part of the discussion. Norristown at least has pushed up the approval of their budget, which is kind of an unusual step. So then a couple of other things that were mentioned, the IU initiatives for the spring include celebration of Earth Day on April 21st, legislative breakfast on April 28th in King of Prussia. And for all you golfers out there, the MCIU Education Foundation has a golf outing fundraiser on May 15th at Brookside Country Club in Pottstown. The other big news for the IU is that they purchased a property at 375 Morris Road in West Point, which they're going to be using for a variety of things, including growing their early intervention and Head Start services. And they're also going to actually be using that property for a career center for students with disabilities. So they have a lot of uses for that property, and that we should be getting bids for renovation of that property actually in May. So that's kind of moving forward. The board approved a variety of budgets, including Head Start, gifted services, Head Start quality improvement, state early intervention. The good news is that early intervention actually got some additional money in the budget. Actually got an additional $3 million in funding for the state early intervention budget. So that's going to help the early intervention program. The Head Start budget will provide a 5.6% salary increase for all Head Start paid staff members, which is huge because the federal government just frankly does not pay enough for Head Start to give these people really a living wage. So the IU has been focused on how can we improve that, what we pay the folks in the Head Start program. So, and then in terms of the retention issue, the IU accepted 11 resignations last month. Really continuing to struggle with staffing. They did hire 2 new employees, and there were 7 mentors were assigned to the induction program for the 2022-23 school year. But they're continuing to focus on how can we retain the employees that we do manage to hire. So that continues to be an ongoing challenge for the IU. And just a little bit more about their property at 375 Morris Road. It will have 13 full-size classrooms for early learning, 7 labs for transition program services, and over a dozen other offices for therapies and other offices for the IU. So it's going to really be a big addition to the IU and what they're going to be able to offer. And then the board approved a number of other contracted services and agreements and other types of support programs. The next IU board meeting will be held in person and over Zoom on Wednesday, April 26th at the IU's offices in Norristown. This ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lohman. Mr. Burdell Williams will provide the facilities report.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Oh, when did we meet? Oh, sorry. I did lose my computer, so I'm doing some. We met prior to the to the financial affairs meeting. Was it the 4th? Okay. That would have been Tuesday, April 4th. Yeah, I don't want to confuse it, excuse me. But it was prior to the April, financial affairs meeting. April 11th is what my colleagues are sharing with me from multiple angles right now. I greatly appreciate the support in lieu of having my computer screen that isn't serving me well because it is dead right now. So the first item that we heard from Mr. Holman was regarding some updates to our admin building. One was in our backflow valves that were installed on our water main system. This is a standard system that exists already in the other buildings in the district, but this one did need one. There is a periodic inspection of such backflow valves in large buildings based on code requirements. And we are compliant. Room 101 in the admin building was upgraded with some LEDs and new ceiling tiles, and there's some upcoming carpet and window treatments as well. Just following along with what is a concerted effort to improve the facility. We've got improvements in the main auditorium here and 102 and other buildings. In other rooms and parts of the facility. So like to see that effort, and also I'm really encouraged by the continuing replacement and upgrade of our lighting systems to include more sustainable LED bulbs that last much longer and use significantly less energy. As well, in terms of the exterior structure, we've had some roofing challenges for a while. This roof is very unique. It is a slate shingle roof, which is relatively uncommon, but commonly very expensive to repair and replace. And we replaced the set of shingles and also made some other improvements to ensure continued water protection for the structure, although we do recognize, and the facilities department acknowledges, that a needed replacement is somewhere in the near future. At CHS, Ms. Henry did share that there's going to be an approval on the board tonight in our agenda regarding the fire alarm system bid over at CHS. This 25-year-old system has had a number of issues, but the bid that was advertised in March and the bid was opened in April, includes horns, strobes, pull stations, control panels, and just like modern control upgrades to a system that has been the cause of a significant number of nuisance alarms this year and in prior years. Also at the high school, the community will remember that maybe 2 years ago, directly following the christening of our new media center, there was a challenge with some condensate from the HVAC system. The facilities department did report that there were some repairs completed there. And once we start running the air conditioning, we're not expecting it to cause any additional condensation because of the completion of those repairs. We did also hear about an LED upgrade in the lobby at the high school. There's already been some LED upgrades in that facility as well as others around the site. So again, as mentioned earlier, just some more positive feedback to the administration on the continued efforts to move us in a more sustainable direction regarding lighting. At EP, speaking about STEM, there was a new space that is being created, or that's being revised, I should say. The former STEM room at EP is being upgraded into an art room, a more improved art space. Dr. Scriven did share that we are not losing capability at EP by the enhancements that are happening to that space and evolving it into an art room, that there have already been other parts of that building that have been identified as going to be receiving some updates to continue to ensure that we can provide the STEM experiences that we've heard about tonight, and hopefully more. At Glenside, there was a generator switch that was upgraded. This was not the generator in and of itself, which is a very huge undertaking for maybe approximately 15-year-old building, but that generator switch gear is something that does wear and was replaced just because it wasn't functioning as well as we needed to. And when power goes out at Glenside, just a note for the community, so does the network in the district as well, because that's where all of the LAN networking hardware exists for us. So we need that building and that structure to have power more consistently than I think we might need more if we need some data communication stuff going. Fleet GPS, moving on from Glenside, in terms of some fleet management updates. Fleet GPS was installed to help better manage the fleet. It gives us information on trip history, mapping, GPS, and just kind of helps with information gathering and help manage fleet, which regardless of what size your fleet is a task in and of itself. And I think any software that can help streamline that is definitely necessary and appreciated. Speaking of software updates, there was also the acknowledgement that the new work order system from FMX is being installed and implemented in the district as well. We've heard over a number of years, and the district has been using for a number of years, the school dues system. This new system is intended to replace that system, but does have some user-friendly enhancements, and we'll be able to essentially port information over from school dude into that program. So all of the effort that had been put in to input preventative maintenance information over the last number of years will not be lost. That was the full extent of what I have in my report. The full presentation can be found online. The next facilities committee meeting will be on May 2nd, 2023, prior to the financial affairs meeting, and I'm happy to do that at 7 p.m. Thank you very much. Prior to the financial affairs meeting, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdell Williams. The only thing that I would like to add to your report from a facility standpoint is that a question did come up around the athletic facilities at the high school, specifically the track. With that, also looking at the football stadium lighting, et cetera, I just want to reiterate that we stated that there is a feasibility study which is being done. However, we are looking at using that same architect separately to create a proposal for the athletic facilities at the high school. So I want to iterate that I'm trying to expedite what's needed so that I can present to the board for your consideration prior to the whole feasibility, because there's some non-negotiables up there around the stadium and the track that needs to be addressed. So that was something that came up in a roundabout way, but I have some of my parents who are always active and concerned from that, and I just wanted to put that out there on the floor prior to them even coming up during public session. So thank you.
Yep, I appreciate that as well, and I know the community does too. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Burdell Williams and Dr. Scriven. The liaison group report will be provided by Mr. Cohen.
Yes, thank you. The liaison group was held on Monday, April 17th, and that's a joint meeting of the township and the school district. First on the agenda, the township commissioners thanked Dr. Scriven for participating in the township's April Civil Rights Task Force meeting. There was then an announcement that Allison Elliott is a new township manager. She had been the assistant township manager of longstanding. There was then a lengthy discussion about PennDOT improvement project on Church Road, and that includes a variety of aspects, including initially work starting on about May 1st for utilities with Aqua, the water utility, over the summer, and that'll be from Panther Road to Heacock Lane. And then there'll be major construction that will start around October 1st. There is a PennDOT meeting of what's being scheduled, being held virtually on April 27th by Zoom. Information is on the township website. And the totality of the PennDOT work on Church Road between roughly Washington Lane and also Limekiln Pike will take about 2 years. So it's going to have some much needed improvements, including pedestrian improvements at Church and Greenwood and Church and Rice's Mill, but it will cause a series of inconveniences over about a 2-year period of time. Next, there was an update on township facilities, including voting locations, and Manager Elliott indicated that the township facilities, including Lamont and Roland, will be open this summer for programs and also for the elections this spring, and that the township had applied for grants for Lamont and Roland that are pending the decision on these grants, and that the township is still working with architects on their facilities planning study. There is a reminder of pool registrations for swimming pools and summer programming by the township. Information is on the township website. There was then a mention of the proposed demolition of Reggie Jackson's childhood home on Greenwood Avenue, and that's coming to the Township Historical Board soon for another meeting. And just for information purposes, that property is not under historic preservation protection. There was then condolences and a conversation about the youth whose mother was murdered last week that we gave a moment of silence for in this meeting. There was then an update on Cheltenham High School students in the Wawa on Route 309. And Dr. Scriven discussed how he was working with the township and also Principal Danger at the high school and successfully, and the manager of the Wawa, to lessen the students causing an impact on that Wawa. There was brief mention of a creek naming efforts by the township, and on the township's website, if you want to name one of about 6 creeks are not named, you can go there and propose a name of a creek, following certain protocols and guidelines. And the goal of that is to get better attention to the creeks that are not named in the township. There was then a discussion about the school district branding efforts, and Dr. Scriven went to that earlier tonight. I won't go into detail about that again. There were then land development updates in the township and announcements. One announcement I want to highlight is that the Cedar Brook musical in the Heights is this weekend. I encourage people personally to attend that musical. Students, I'm sure, will do a great job. The next liaison group meeting is scheduled to be held virtually at 8 a.m. on May 15th, and that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Mr. Epps will provide the policy update.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of the board, administration, and members of the public attending. The policy committee meeting was held on March 28th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in person and streamed online via Zoom. After the roll call and approval of the February 21st, 2023 minutes, we discussed the policies listed on tonight's consent agenda under the policy committee report. Tonight, we have 7 policies presented for adoption and 1 policy presented for appeal. The 7 for adoption are as follows. 113.2 around behavior support. I do want to express appreciation for the community participation that we have received throughout this process, in particular to this, even in our policy committee meetings. Policy number 011, principles for governance and leadership. Policy number 828, district-wide safety. Number 236, threat assessment. Number 827, conflict of interest. Number 825, reporting waste and wrongdoing in district operations. Whistleblower. 920, non-school organizations, groups, and individuals. Those 7 policies are being considered for adoption. The policy being considered for repeal is number 709, relating to building security, which has really been included in another policy around district-wide safety. Other topics discussed during our new business portion of the meeting were 3 policies that are on tonight's agenda as first read. That's policy in AR 204 on attendance, 127, assessment of educational program, and policy in AR 136 on home education. All first read policies from tonight will be discussed at the next policy committee meeting on Tuesday, April 25th at 7 p.m. here at the admin building, and also streamed online. And as we heard, it will be immediately followed by the Educational Affairs Committee as well. That concludes my report for policy committee. Should I just keep it going? Okay. I've got 2 in a row this month as a member of the Montgomery County School Board Legislative Committee. We met on March 15th, 2023. When we meet, we discuss proposed and adopted legislation and issues that require advocacy with our elected officials. And so during each legislative meeting, I'll share some federal and state legislative updates on topics that impact public education. Last month, at a federal level, President Biden announced his 2024 fiscal year budget. That fiscal year runs from October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. And so the funding from this budget would impact the 24-25 school year, just to put things in perspective. This proposal includes a 13% increase for the U.S. Department of Education, with significant investments in Title I, special education, and teacher development, among some other initiatives. This proposal is not final and very far from it. It represents the proposal from the White House only. And so Congress will propose its own budget. Really, both houses of Congress can do that, and negotiations will take place. As we've seen over the last few years, a long-term agreement isn't always a guarantee, certainly not swiftly. And so as members of the public, you can certainly share your views, concerns, thoughts with our Congress members, Representative Madeline Dean, Senators Bob Casey and John Fetterman, all represent us there in Washington. They have offices both here in the Commonwealth and DC, and their information can be found online. In February, something that's that would impact us here in Cheltenham and all districts in the Commonwealth, the U.S. Department of Agriculture proposed changes to the nutrition standards to align with the 2020 dietary guidelines for Americans. And so this proposal would increase limits on added sugars, sodium within the breakfast and lunch meals that are served in a good way. Increasing the limit. So actually by about 10% less sugar, 10% less sodium, but would actually have an impact on operations and so forth here. So that is a proposal through the Agricultural Department. The public comment period just ended last week. Apologies, I didn't make this known before that was before that closed, but we'll await the final decision. That's a topic that's come up in our committee meetings over the last few months, and what we feed our children, right, certainly impacts their learning every single day. So something we want to follow and track. At the state level, in March last month, I reported on a budget proposal from Governor Shapiro. In March, Acting Secretary of Education Khalid Moomin went before both the House and Senate Appropriation Committees to discuss the governor's budget proposal. The total budget that he proposed is just over $44 billion with a B, and education represents 40% of that budget. And so it's one of the largest investments the Commonwealth makes, which totals about $17 billion. So out of the total 44. And so the questions the acting secretary fielded ranged from universal free school meals, breakfast and lunch, to addressing poor performing charter schools, to how school districts use their reserve funds. As negotiations continue, we all have the opportunity to make our voices heard to our legislators. State Senator Art Haywood sits on the Appropriations Committee, and State Representative Napoleon Nelson has a seat on the Education Committee. Earlier today, members of the board and our superintendent met with both of those individuals and strong advocates for Cheltenham, both residents of Cheltenham here. And so we met with them as part of the Pennsylvania School Board Association's Advocacy Day. It's a yearly event where school board members and other partners, we meet with legislators. One of the main things that we can do, we all hear about it, is make your voice heard, talk to your legislators, and that's what we did today, and we'll certainly continue to do that. We shared important things happening in Cheltenham, even being how we integrate STEM into our project-based learning, and how we're taking action on our strategic plan. And certainly very clear ways they can support our implementation of that plan through both funding and changes to legislation. And so we know it'll take aligned action from everyone who has a role to play to deliver on our mission to all 4,325 students within the district. And so that concludes my report for tonight. The Legislative Committee will convene again this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epps. We are at the approval of agenda items on our consent agenda. Next, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Cohen.
Well, point of order, just, I guess it doesn't matter. I would make a motion to
Approve and then,
pull out one of the items in the consent agenda, policy number 113.2.
I'll second that.
okay, so we will remove that. And so we, do I have a motion?
I'm sorry, for the record, I'll recall my motion.
Okay,
My motion was still technically active.
yes, okay, thank you. So do we have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda minus the policy 113.2?
So moved.
Is there a second? Julie,
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay, are there any comments on any of those other items that are listed here before we take a vote?
Yes, Ms. Henry, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Yes. So with respect to a couple of things, one is I just wanted to acknowledge the retirements that are coming up this year. And that includes I'm just going to name the folks that I personally met. That includes Mr. Buckingham. And let me just get my sheet out. And Miss Smith at the Elkins Park and David Burton at the high school. Those are long-term teachers in our school district that have really provided a lot of time and service to our students in our district. So I just wanted to acknowledge them tonight. Secondly, I wanted to make a comment about policy 113.2. I will be approving policy 113.2 this evening with the understanding that, there's a request to administration to develop a administrative regulation that implements the provisions of policy 113.2. Additionally, I think policy 113.2, as it currently stands, is very narrowly written to really only apply with respect to seclusion or restraints when there's a danger to the student or staff member. And also with the understanding, after a very robust discussion during the policy committee meeting, that we will be moving towards removing restraints and seclusion as possible consequences for behavior. I do feel strongly, as reflected in the discussion during the policy committee meeting, that it's really important for us to expeditiously move in that direction, but with the understanding that there's an interim step before we get there. And given what we currently have in place, that there needs to be appropriate training of staff, even as it relates to the current language in the policy itself. So with those caveats, again, I will be moving forward with at least approval of 113.2 with that understanding.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Haywood. Is there anybody, Mr. Fishbein?
Yeah, I think David Burton justifies a special call out from me personally because he had an impact on my children and on so many in this community because he started and ran for a long time, Life Seeds, a program that was a summer camp where all of the counselors were Cheltenham High School students and all of the campers were Cheltenham students throughout the district. It was just a phenomenal program that added so much to our community. And I know that he, as a teacher in the high school, he was a tremendous mentor to many of our students who've been through the district. And it would be remiss not to honor him in this way at his retirement.
Thank you, Mr. Fishbein. Ms. Mulhern?
Thank you. a few retirement comments of my own. Mr. Stephen Buckingham at Winco, while he was not a teacher of my children, as a frequent volunteer and PTO member, he was always very supportive of our events, has a way of getting children to love to read and want to learn to read. And really, we try to get books into students' hands as much as possible. And I wanted to acknowledge that. Ms. Sid Smith at EP, as Julie mentioned, has been here. Ms. Haywood mentioned, has been here for a long time. And the work that she does with students, especially that goes unseen, I think, by most people, helping to get students and their families or guardians things that they need beyond what's happening in the classroom, cannot be overstated. I know that she's had a amazing impact on so many students' lives. And the third person I'd like to mention is a teacher that my child has right now, Mrs. Karen Gooden. She has been a fantastic teacher for my child this year. And I wish her well. 30 years of teaching in our district, special education, and it's just an amazing teacher who has really changed my child's trajectory this year, and just cannot overstate how much I will personally, my family will miss her. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mulhern. Mr. Burdell Williams.
Yep, I'll be brief. I do want to echo the sentiment that's been shared already by my colleagues regarding Ms. Sid Smith. We did hear from Dr. Scriven earlier in regards to the EP leadership program, and I'm excited that that's going to be transitioning to staff who are going to be continuing with this, but also very grateful for Sid Smith for, continuing the energy through that, especially how challenging something like that could be through the pandemic, and trying to, organize activities in that way. It takes a lot, and it speaks to Ms. ability to connect again in the ways that I think Ms. Mulhern was sharing, and help families get the things that they need. A few more comments. The second one, as I've shared before, also wanted to share now, appreciation for the long list of volunteers that we're approving tonight, right? It says a lot that our community is willing to go as far to go through the steps required to have themselves be eligible to be able to help out in our school buildings. It's a little bit more than chaperones for field trips. It means they're going to be around for things like the STEM activities that were discussed tonight, and other amazing opportunities that are happening in our school buildings every day, every week, right? Also, one thing that wasn't discussed, but that was also a part of our facilities committee meeting that we are seeking to vote on and approve right now is for Mr. William Littles to become our custodial supervisor. That is a person who's been elevated from within, who has been with the district for some time and will be continuing with us, but in a capacity with increased responsibility, if in fact we approve, which I'm very hopeful we will. And I'm just, again, excited to see that we, folks who are familiar with us, who have worked with us, who are staying around with us, we are, rewarding them through their hard work to bring a much needed supervisor to a role that we know is very critical to district operations. And that is all that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I just wanted to, for the retirement section, the number of teachers or the number of people on this list who have been in the district for 20, 25, 30 years, it's a huge, it's 192 years of total service that's reflected in this fairly short list. And I know we've been naming specific folks and also generally recognizing it, but I just want to thank all of them for the amount, just collectively, for the amount of time that they've dedicated to our community and our kids, and also all just general recognition that we are a community with a lot of depth and a lot of history, and moments like looking at resignation lists is an opportunity to reflect on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Ms. Lohman.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Just a few things. First, I also wanted to comment on the retirements as well. And thank you, Mr. Schultz, for quantifying that. It really does speak to how committed people have been to the district. Sid Smith definitely was there for my family when my son was at BP during a very difficult time. So I want to recognize that. And then Mr. Burton is actually still going strong with Life Seeds, just at a different location. And want to recognize all that he has done for the students in our district as well, and will continue to do as he continues on with his work with Life Seeds. And then also just wanted to point out, because we get this question I get this question, I know, I believe other board members do as well, sort of where is the ESSER money going? And Mr. Swiker did discuss that at the last Financial Affairs Committee meeting. And so we're actually going to be voting on some items tonight as to where is the ESSER money going. We're going to be voting to approve the purchase of 1,250 Lenovo Chromebooks for Elkins Park and the elementary schools. And then we're also going to be voting on approving the purchase of 100 smart boards, including installation for CHS. So I just wanted to point that out for community members that, that is a significant amount of money that we're going to be using the ESSER funding for to purchase some items that hopefully will last us, several years. And then I did want to make a comment about policy 113.2.
Jenny, can I ask you to hold that comment, because when we vote on that, I'll open.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I know, but that's
okay.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you. All right, so for the consent agenda, I want to take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries. So now we will bring the motion to the floor to vote on policy 113.2. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I want to open the floor up to comments. Jenny, Ms. Lohman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first I wanted to just start by thanking the community for really showing up and being extremely thoughtful in their feedback and comments on policy 113.2. It led to some really rich discussions at the policy committee meetings. So I want to thank community members for coming out and spending the time to participate and really provide their feedback and thoughts about the policy. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I appreciate the administration's willingness to listen to all of that, and including the board comments, thoughts, and discussions, and the community feedback as well. I think that this policy opened up a wider discussion in many ways that has sort of been in many years in the making, and I hope that we can continue with that discussion. And I think that I appreciate the efforts to try to make the use of seclusion limited and in only very limited circumstances. I am looking forward to the administrative regulation that will accompany that will hopefully flesh that out some more. And also the training that the staff will receive on this policy, and the appropriate times when to use seclusion and restraint, and really more to the point, when not to use them, and using them, and using all of the way we interact with students in a trauma-informed way. I think that's what this policy really touches on in some ways, is our other policy, ensuring that we're not creating more trauma for students, but in effect, interacting with them in a trauma-informed way. So I put that out there. I think I really have struggled because so many groups that work with children and adults with disabilities are very much opposed to the use of seclusion in any form. They really, it's because there have been so many instances of where the use of seclusion and restraint have gone horribly wrong. And so I have struggled with how to vote on this policy because of that. Even with the most well-meaning of intentions, where people said seclusion is just, for a cool down, a timeout, things unfortunately happen when kids are left alone in a room. And I'm hoping that since our policy says that will not happen except in the most extreme of circumstances. But I do just sort of put that out there. I appreciate it that we are aiming to try to get this to eliminate the use of seclusion, because it really, it's not really behavior support. I mean, it's really a way for the adults to try to, in some ways, get themselves together to figure out what to do next with the student. And so I think that, it's a practice whose time has come and gone. And I'm really hoping that we can work to eliminate it. So I just put that out there. I've really struggled with this because I really would like to see us, and I know we will, move in other ways, particularly as we bring more special education students back into the district, which is one of our aims for a variety of reasons. So we really have to figure out how to address challenging behaviors without resorting to restraints, seclusion, and other kinds of methods that have had unfortunate effects. So thank you.
I would like to acknowledge that, in that meeting, it was very enlightening for me to hear from the community members and people who are well-versed in special ed in a way that many of us are not. I appreciate that this policy is not a destination. It is a short-term remedy, and that we will soon be hiring a new director of special ed that will provide the pathways for us to move forward to a place that is truly inclusive of all of our students in the most beneficial way. And this is one of those tough decisions that you have to make when you struggle with being on both sides of the fence, believing that this is not necessarily where we want to be, but also knowing that we need to provide some interim support in some way. And so I'm also looking forward to the conversation next week on the AR. So I just wanted to make note of that. Mr. Fishbein?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Henry. Thank you, Ms. Lohman, for your impassioned discussion tonight and for the input you gave to the meeting last week. I think it really important to acknowledge, seek the organization for special needs parents and their students, and the role that they played in the discussion about this policy, but more generally, the role they're playing in this community to focus the board and the administration's attention on issues affecting students with special needs. I think it's appropriate to highlight an event that they have coming up that really touches on this discussion, which is on April 27th at 7 o'clock. It's titled "No Kid is a Bad Kid, Compassionate Approaches to Discipline." It's available by Zoom. It has been promoted on the district's website, and if you look for it there, you will find it. My family started the predecessor to, my wife started this predecessor to Seek, and to see that the work that they were doing 15 years ago is continuing now, and for the first time feeling like it's getting into the DNA of what we're doing as a board and administration. I'm grateful for the discussion, and to echo Ms. Henry, I'm supporting this policy, not because I think it's the right conclusion, but it's the right step in the journey to the destination.
Mr. Schultz?
Thank you. I echo all the sentiments that have been shared by my colleagues. And I just wanted to add one word to the conversation, which is capacity. This policy as written to me reflects an intention, and it's a step along the way of developing capacity as an organization to achieve our final goal when it comes to special education, not just in terms of the elimination of use of seclusion, but also in terms of meeting the needs of all of our students in the academic sense and in the belonging sense. So that's part of where I think, I don't remember who said it, but this policy really pulled out more than just this policy. It's a broader conversation, and I'm very thankful for the current administration's dedication to taking this head on and committing to developing that capacity. And of course, it's on us as board members and the community to hold the organization accountable towards that commitment. So I will also be voting to support this in the same sense as a step towards that development. Thank you.
Yeah, look, at the risk of repeating what a lot of my colleagues have just said, I think that the process for me in struggling, how to vote, coming to policy meetings that, I'm not on the policy committee, so I do not always attend them. So it was amazing to me to see that between the interest of the board and the board wanting to do the right thing, our, coming together, the discussion we had that is not the kind of discussion that always happens at committee meetings, the advocacy of SEEK and other groups and parents and guardians, coming forward and sharing at times painful stories to illustrate what a policy like this permits and does not permit. But coming to a conclusion, or not a conclusion, but coming again, a step in, on that journey where we have in the policy, the statement that our intention is to eliminate this. I can't think of another policy where there is a statement like that, but I could be incorrect. And the idea, I think Dr. Scriven said in our policy committee meeting, we can bring this back next month. We can bring this back in 2 months. There's not a limit to, you can't talk about a policy for X number of years. It can come right back when we're ready to, to get us going in the even further down this road when we have a new director in place and we're ready to do that, have the capacity. So I just wanted to, again, thank those that on a day of advocacy for many of us, seeing advocacy in our whole community. I just really appreciate those parents and their time, and to my fellow colleagues. Thank you.
Did you? Anybody else before we take a vote? You sure? Okay. All right, we're gonna take this by roll call vote. Ms. Harding, you're gonna do the roll call?
Mr. Cullen. I'm gonna go around
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. We now have public comments on non-agenda items. If you're in the community and you have a comment and/or question, feel free to approach the podium, state your name and where you reside in the district. If you are watching streaming or on Zoom, if you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand. You'll be unmuted. If you're watching streaming, you can email CSD board meeting comments@cheltenham.org. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. There were no, I'm sorry.
heard, I think you all have really my comment, I appreciate the others and everyone that I put that out there.
So have the questions that you posed, have they been presented to the principal at Cheltenham High School already?
You sent emails. Some of them, we haven't gotten a response back. We're gonna try calling some of the looking at the we haven't gotten a response back. I've been able to talk to the athletic director. And gotten a few conflicting statements based on what was told, what people saying. So it's kind of unclear as to what's going on and what is the next steps. And the biggest concerns are approaching summer. A lot of people are off in the summertime, in our hurricanes and all of them. Ms. Ox, can I actually just ask her, or Claire, no, I don't even know what I meant, but your question about the budgeting for athletics and extracurriculars.
Wait,
I wanted to address that if I could.
Okay,
Just and this is generally for the community in general. The next financial affairs committee meeting will be a discussion of the budget, if I understand. So broadly, the community should know that that's a great meeting to attend. It's discussing a large, not just athletic budget, but the budget overall. So please try to attend. Thank you.
that wasn't.
Understood.
You're not the first parent, at least to me personally, as one board member, who's asked that question about athletics and extracurricular budgeting and how is it done? And how can parents if parents can have input into that process? It seems to be a mystery to people, I think, how the budget for athletics and extracurriculars is set. And I don't, as one board member, don't actually know if it's separately set as part or, just part, it's a line item in, our overall budget.
So is that one of the questions that you have?
It is. I know I personally, another parent,
Right. So I'm not, so what I said as superintendent was when you forward all your questions to me, we will hold a meeting and we will address all of those questions so that everyone has clarity. I'm really saying that for my board.
Thank you.
Because I said that for a reason. It's no need for us to go item by item. If I say I'm going to address it, I'm going to address it.
thank you so much. Nothing else? Okay. All right, our upcoming meetings are listed in the agenda, and they go from, just for information purposes, from our next meeting, April 25th, all the way through our last meeting on June 27th. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved. Second.
Meeting is adjourned.